Welcome to Great Companies, Great Leaders. I am your host, Christine Gannon. I'm the CEO of Brightworks Consulting. And I am just so honored today to have Michelle Tinsley, the President and COO of YellowBird Holdings with us. Michelle, welcome.
Thank you, Christine. It's great to be here.
So a little bit before we get started, a little bit about Michelle and her career. She's the co-founder and president / COO of YellowBird. And YellowBird is matching highly qualified EHS professionals with businesses simply and easily. The YellowBird on-demand marketplace matches professionals with the right skills to the work on demand, which is something we all need right now, right? I still believe there's a war for talent, no matter what's happening in our environment, for sure in Phoenix. So prior to founding YellowBird, Michelle served as CEO of Tinsley Retail Insights, a consulting firm helping retailers drive actionable innovation to compete with digital disruption, which she formed in January of 2018. Michelle has served in a variety of roles over her 26 long career at Intel, 26 years, 18 years in finance, with her last role as the mini CFO of what is today's IoT business. She then served 6 years in general management and strategy roles and 9 months in sales leadership. On the personal side of things, Michelle is an angel investor in the Arizona Technology Investors Group since 2013. She served on the board of directors for QuikTrip for 5 years and actively serves on the board of Arizona Tech Investors and YellowBird. She received her bachelor's degree from the University of Oregon and an MBA from ASU, go Devils. And she is happily married and raises her 2 sons, ages 15 and 9, with her husband, Alan, in Phoenix. So welcome.
Thank you.
What an awesome career history.
Yeah, it was, one thing to learn at a great company and keep changing roles and adding to your skill set, but to then leave and find my kind of mojo working with startups and founding a startup is just been really rewarding personally to see what we can accomplish so quickly and hopefully make a real change in the US labor workforce. If the workplace is safer, more people go home happy to their families every day at the end of a shift. It's great.
So that's a great start to our conversation today, because leadership within a corporate environment, potentially, I guess it's a question for you. How do you think it's different in a startup?
I think it's a lot harder here because you do have to wear so many hats. At Intel, even being in finance and having many, many years of experience, we weren't accounting. We weren't accounts payable. We weren't accounts receivable. We didn't do investor relations much. And so, when you become part of a startup, you naturally are all those roles. I basically am the fractional CFO, the chief revenue officer. For the first 2 years, I was head of sales and marketing. And so now we've brought those leaders in. I happily relinquished that leadership mantle, but then that means I can go deeper on things like operations, HR, working with our team to figure out how are we getting the word out and supporting things like our CEO as he goes to raise, equity funds from VCs. So there's never enough, time in the day to get all the work done, but it's really just a massive priority setting exercise, and also that context switching as a leader between super strategic, important things that you got to make sure still get done, and then the kind of tactical, urgent stuff that also needs to get done.
I am so glad you brought that up, because I feel like an entrepreneurial leader wears 25 hats and doesn't really have the luxury, until things are smoothly rolling and you're not necessarily a startup anymore. You don't really have the luxury to wear 3 hats or 1 hat. It takes a lot of agility in terms of switching those hats. So tell us about your passion for YellowBird. How did that come together?
Sure. So I had a niggling, feeling about startups when I became an angel investor as far back as 2013. And as, a year or two later, companies we invested in would come back with updates. I honestly was jealous. I was still in the corporate world mindset on a day in and day out, and felt like, gosh, these companies have accomplished more in a year or two than we have in ages, and so they're moving the needle. We're seeing significant progress. I'm kind of jealous. So when I had, an opportunity to leave Intel, I thought I'll start my own business and do consulting. But what I quickly realized was I wasn't fulfilled by the consulting role, and that I do a great work product. totally be what my clients needed, but it was 50-50 whether they actually implemented it or not. They pay me, but and the money was great, better than a startup. But I kind of went, at this point in my career, it's not about just the paycheck. It's about really feeling like I'm creating real change and making a difference. And so I got into a different role at a startup, was CEO of a fintech startup. And after 7 months, kind of transitioned away from that. It wasn't a great fit. But then started networking with the sole intent of, could I find another startup that I could both get passionate about what they're doing, bring a right skill set to the picture, but then also really believe in the co-founder? Because what I learned from that other lesson is I have to be able to trust my co-founder with my life or my children's lives. And so when I met Michael, he checked every box. We have very complementary skill sets. He's super visionary. He knew, honestly, the EHS industry way better than I did. I had an appreciation for it and kind of an arm's length relationship with EHS. Being at Intel, I supported the factories for 10 years, and obviously it's central to the employee culture there. But in finance, I really wasn't day in and day out. I wasn't certified and, don't have a long EHS career to my title. So I had to kind of mentally do that gut check of, could I get passionate about safety? Could I learn enough about it? Really, my role is to bring technology and a platform scaling mindset to this industry that historically has been job by job, person by person. If you needed something done and you didn't have it in-house, well, there's a guy I know, let's call him and see if he can do it, And so it's really to disrupt that whole model and think about, no, what if it was a known mechanism that you could lightly retire in this industry and yet still earn really good money by exposing your professional skills nationwide, and have companies tap into that. And you are in the driver's seat as the worker, deciding whether that job's right for you or not. Is the timing right? Is the pay right? Is the type of work what you want to do? And so I loved that we're tapping into all these kind of mega trends and what the change that's occurring in the HR landscape right now.
So let's talk a little bit about that, because I know you've shared a little bit about YellowBird, but let's talk about the model. How does it really work? So who is it for and how does it work?
Sure. So we consider that we have two sets of customers. The first one that we started working on immediately was signing up our supply, or the EHS professionals. And what we see them is kind of from three camps. One is there are people who are recently retired or want to lightly retire, but still stay active, keep their credentials current, and do work every now and then. We then have a third that are actively employed full-time already at a corporate EHS role, and they're looking to do gig work on nights and weekends or when they're free. And then we have a third group that is more the I own my own independent safety business and I want to use YellowBird to top up my workload. Again, from being a consultant, most people would say, yeah, you spend 30 to 50% of your time looking for that next client. You may go through a month or two lull where your income isn't quite what you wanted it to be. If you're on the YellowBird platform, you can now use it as a gap filling, kind of say yes or no, depending on your workload. So we definitely see all three of those camps coming through. We have since, inception also added kind of a flavor of long-term staffing. So we have some gigs that last as long as a year. So we do see people signing up that were unemployed during the recession with the pandemic, and now getting, a full year assignment and making pretty good money at it.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
So the second side of the platform is more the company's side. And that's where we're trying to engage corporately with companies. A lot in our sales process, the companies that are very large that can do 100 to 1,000 gigs a year. Obviously, if you're much smaller, you can just go to our website, sign up as a company, put a job through. It's very simple, and our salespeople will guide you. But where we spend our lead gen and kind of time and effort getting people over the hump is on the bigger clients, the scaling partners, as I call them. And for that, again, we're showing that we have the levels of insurance certificates. We protect our workers with professional liability insurance, that we're doing things like the Avetta platform or Ariba, where we're paying to get onto those supplier platforms and do the corporate onboarding that, again, most small businesses wouldn't be able to do.
Absolutely. All of that in your role takes a whole lot of skill, talent, and ability. And you've been incredibly successful in your career. We read about your bio, but you've been incredibly successful. And I know just from our conversations previously, this is very successful. This venture is very successful. So as a leader, what do you think the greatest skill set is that has allowed you to be so successful? What did you cultivate as a leader to be so successful?
I think it's just a learning mentality, because I will be the first to admit every day I'm still learning. And I feel so strongly about it that Mike and I, when we set the company values for YellowBird, one of the 5 is lifelong learning. We
Ah,
hopefully are hiring employees that come in one position, and I'd love to have them do 3 or 5 positions in their career with us. That experience I had at Intel, I joked that I learned how to use a mouse my first week at the company because I was hired in right on the transition from DOS to Windows. That's how old I am. But then to think and look at what I did over that 26-year span, the only way you do that is with intense learning and being open to feedback, learning from your employees. It's not one directional. It's not that I just talk here as a mentor and tell people what to do. It's
sure.
learning equally as much from them on new approaches, keeping myself current. And then, I think by doing that learning, you're always improving upon yourself and really thinking through my litmus test is what's best for the company and what does the company need?
Absolutely. And when you think about that, what's best for the company and what does the company need? How does culture weave into that and designing a culture, especially at a startup? You have a pretty hefty job in terms of shaping what the culture would be like.
Yeah, it felt silly at the time. We only had 3 employees. Mike and I sat down, and one of our founders, we do every other week a founders chat for 2 hours at a minimum. And we said, this week, let's pull out some values cards and pick, 10 that are most resonating with each of us, and then compare. And
Mhm.
then, kind of look at, we iterated a bit, and then we got it down to 5, and then we kind of honed in to make them unique. So for instance, one of our values is keep it spicy. There was no values card around that, but it's really, safety people are the 1% of an employee population at best. They've got to, though, profoundly change the flavor of that entire company culture. So we say by keeping it spicy, we are hopefully a fun, value added aspect to the world of safety, and not, what I say, a bunch of, finger wagging, rule abiding people that nobody wants to listen to. But it also means for our employees really bringing their own special, unique, personal attributes to the job and making it, them, and making it fun. And when we have now 24 employees, they're all different spices.
Wow.
So last year, our customer appreciation gift was a little trio pack of spice mixes that we sent to customers, because we're like, this is just how we got to, make our values live and fun. And but at the time we were kind of like, God, this feels really, corporate-y to be setting company values, a month after we launched our website. I think we were 4 months old at that point, but it's then been our litmus test ever since. So as we went to hire new people to the company, we always ask them, okay, which of the 5 values resonates most with you and why? And again, it's in every job description, but if somehow they haven't grokked the values, you're like, well, then they're just interviewing out there on the circuit. They're not really
Right.
focused on working for us, and it's been fun to see each employee come in and kind of add their own little element, to the values and the culture.
That's awesome. And how do you maintain it? What types of things? I know you said you sent out spices, but how do you maintain your culture with your employees?
So we do have quarterly conversations with every employee about development. One of the 3 topics for that is how are they doing on role modeling the values? And vice versa, as a manager, how am I doing on adhering to the values? Are there things I could do better, or that you like that I'm doing that you want me to keep doing? In addition, any kind of recognitions, we have a small moments jar. This was actually one of the kind of rituals that one of our new employees put in place, which is simply a Google form. It's a way to give a shout out to somebody else on the team. You don't have to be their manager. You could be a peer. You could be in another department. But it's, hey, I saw someone doing something, and they attribute it to a value. So when we get 10 of those in the jar, it goes out as a company-wide email. So every week or so, we're getting an email, with fun little kudos. So-and-so did this or that. And especially in a virtual or hybrid world, it's great to pull in both the offsite employees, people telecommuting. They're still getting kudos. They're getting recognized by other people. And now it's visible to the entire company.
That is an awesome idea. That's a great idea to do. And it has momentum to it, right?
Yeah.
It stays strong.
It's simple and repeatable. We said, we can't get in stuff that's so heavyweight that we now start not doing the day job, and only doing the cultural side.
Right.
during the pandemic, to keep things fun, we started having spicy Mondays, where
Ah.
we would dress up on Monday for the Zoom calls. That's when we'd have our staff meetings. And we said, rather than being, oh God, here comes Monday, a bunch of Brady Bunch boxes on the screen, we're going to dress up to a theme, and it'll be kind of fun to see when people log in, what do they look like? So we had everything from Sesame Street to 1980s, 1990s. We've had emo was one of our
Oh, wow.
done ones. And now that we're not in, the pandemic, and we're back partly in an office, we're looking into it. We do it monthly, and we do it the day that we have our all employee meetings. And so basically, people can kind of still dress up and have fun, but it's not as rigorous as once a week. But that's still kind of fun to see that whoever wins, there's no prize money. They just get to pick the topic for the next month. So I think that our next one will be dress for success, is what, so fancy clothing. So we'll see. Yeah.
Suits and ties, maybe.
Yeah.
So wrapping up, couple last questions for you. What's been one of your greatest leadership lessons?
I think it's to more quickly admit when I'm wrong.
Mm.
You want to be so perfect and so right and so smart, but as you become more of a leader, you realize it is not about what I have in my brain. It's about how I inspire and hopefully encourage others, because there's no way I could be the smartest person in the room all the time. And so it's out there. It's the employees. They're there. And so how do I give them the safe space in the harbor to speak up and bring their ideas to the table and contradict maybe a weird idea I had, that just isn't the right one, and so it's being able to say, yep, you're right. Let's move on. Let's take that idea and run with it, and give them the credit for it. And really, again, go back to the doing what's right for the company.
Yeah. And it's funny, because when I think about what you said, not realizing that you don't know everything, but great leaders surround themselves with people that complement their skill set, right? We can't be everything to everyone. So great leaders look for those areas where there's an opportunity, and then find those strengthening links that they can add to their team. So such a good point. Such a good point. Last question. Who's your hero?
Honestly, it's weird. It's my great grandma. I'm into family tree. I've met her a few times before she passed. She did live to be, I want to say 99. But she came over to the United States at age 16 with $35 in her pocket, according to Ellis Island, and never saw her parents again. They wrote, and later in life had phone calls, but she never had the money to go back. She was from Poland. And so to think that she taught herself English by reading the paper, she got a job and worked just honestly cleaning the stairs at the Palmolive building in downtown Chicago, but earned enough money to buy a house and have 8 kids and take care of her family.
Wow.
Just the work ethic she had, and the chutzpah, I go, maybe if I got just one little ounce of that. And she didn't have a huge fan base, and she didn't, anytime I would have a little pity party for myself and go, oh, life is so hard, I go, wait a minute, I have so much easier than how she had it. So I try to kind of keep that in the back of my head, that not all, heroes are famous movie stars or people that you read about in People magazine. They're actually just people you knew, and did kind of quietly some amazing things.
That is an awesome story. Thank you for sharing that. That is an awesome, no wonder she's your hero. That's phenomenal. Those stories, my grandparents came over from Ellis Island as well. And I think about that in terms of they never saw their parents again either. And I just think the courage that it took to get on a boat, to come across, not having zero idea of what was on the other end, right? Yeah. That compares to nothing that I deal with in my day. Nothing.
And if you ever get a chance to go to Ellis Island, they have an amazing experience where they walk you through. Here's where you would enter. Here's the staircase you go up. Here's where you would sit for hours in the heat, waiting for them to evaluate you and see if you have a medical condition. If you did, they quarantined you. And it was good luck, And so they walk you through the process. It gives you a whole new appreciation. It was not, a real efficient process. I'll just say that.
No. And they didn't have technology like we do now, So goodness. Well, you definitely have her characteristics, all the risks and the success that you've had, and just congratulations. You're an amazing leader. So glad that you joined us today. How can people find you? How can they find YellowBird?
Oh, sure. So our website is www.goyellowbird.com. We had to put the go in front of there. And then from there, they can either sign up as a company or a professional, no fees, so we're not here to try to gouge people. And then basically, we're contactable from that as well. Both Mike and I as founders or anybody on the sales or operations team.
Awesome. Michelle, thank you.
Thank you, Christine, for having me.
Brightworks Consulting hosts this podcast and YouTube channel to spotlight the leadership around the world that is changing lives. Brightworks offers a myriad of consulting services in the public and private sector, to include diversity, equity, and inclusion solutions for any size company. You can find us at www.brightworksconsulting.com. We're honored to have Best Companies AZ as a presenting sponsor for this podcast. Best Companies AZ is your #1 source for regional employer branding. You can find them at www.bestcompaniesaz.com.